What is up, everybody? Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are having a great time out there. Of course, I am Andrew Esquire, Florida attorney over here in Asia, and this is a Legal Mindset where we teach you to be your own judge. Back in the home base, back in the action here in Bangkok, Thailand, and really enjoying it here today, this morning. Good morning to all you guys out there, wherever you are. Morning, evening, or night. It is great to see you all out there, and great to be here with you all today. I hope you guys are all doing fantastic and having a magical day, even if, well, Disney is not. We'll be talking about a lot about that today. What's going on with Disney in terms of the appeal, in terms of what's going on with the business units, what's going on in general. Also, we will be discussing a lot about the timelines that are going on right now, essentially when things are coming up. There's a lot of relevant timing issues. We'll talk a little bit about the sale of a large component of Disney. We'll also get into one thing I want to touch on is an update in the state case. There's actually a little bit of action there on the state side, a little bit of action with the public records lawsuit. And then at the very end of the show today, I want to spend a little tiny bit of time talking about Canada. And one second. Gosh, I always feel like on the edge of sneezing. But I want to talk about Canada because, number one, shout out to my Canadian friends and those that are there. I have family, in fact, in Canada as well. And one of the most tyrannical governments, not just during COVID, but over the past half decade, almost decade, has been Canada. So with the ruling on the emergency powers used by Justin Trudeau being unreasonable, I thought that's worth exploring for at least a couple of minutes. Now, I'm no Viva Fry. I don't have the hair, and I'm also not a Mirkwood elf, so I'm not Runkle. But, you know, it's worth a mention, especially since we're facing a lot of the same sorts of tyrannical grasp for power in the United States and all around the world, where people are grasping for power and pushing the limits of our individual rights. But before we go into any of that, thank you, One Dickhead, for becoming a new member. Appreciate that you've joined the BLM. So now we've got One Dickhead in the BLM. And also, I want to give a big shout out to Scott Westbrook, who dropped before any of this started, before all of this happened. Scott Westbrook dropped 5 Legal Mindset memberships. So big ups. Thank you to Scott for hooking that up and dropping those memberships on everybody. And please say thank you, Poca T, Thanatos Feliciatus, Peter Petrelli, Argo Sloof, Michael Droughty, Michael Droughty. Say thank you to Scott, because Scott just hooked you up. And also, welcome to the RPG, Antoinette Kilpatrick. Welcome. Or Antoinette Kilpatrick. I am just getting people's names butchered today. Me scusi. So we're going to get into it with the appeal today and what's going on with this appeal. Now, what am I talking about? Well, I am talking about, obviously, the loss that not many people have heard about. In fact, I want to play, before we start anything, before we get into the appeal and my thoughts about the appeal, I want to play this video. And this is something that came up that I saw from News Nation, and this was posted 9 hours ago. And this is a very, I think, thoughtful analysis of why nobody is talking about this and why this is something that hasn't been as big as it should have been. So I don't know if you guys have seen this one. It's with Dan Abrams. Now, he doesn't know the law that's relevant here, but there's an analysis of what's going on with this in terms of the media coverage that I think, at least in part, is spot on. So let me play this for you guys here so you can hear the analysis of why nobody is talking about Disney versus DeSantis, other than us, why the left-wing media is suspiciously quiet on this. We'll let it play out.
No. But there was a really big ruling in the Ron DeSantis versus Disney feud. I mean, a really big one. If you've watched partisan media outlets over the past year, you certainly know all about the feud, right, between the Florida governor and Disney.
Put the volume up there. Boom.
Saw it covered constantly, left-leaning outlets taking repeated shots at the governor over culture battle it deemed abhorrent, and The right-leaning outlets used the Disney battle to hype DeSantis as the rising star and serious contender in the 2024 election. But now that Governor DeSantis has dropped out of the race and burned his bridges with former President Donald Trump, the right-leaning outlets don't appear to have that much use for him anymore. And the left-leaning outlets only seem to want to talk about DeSantis when they can criticize or poke fun at him.
So I think this is an interesting comment, and I'll let it play out a little bit more. But essentially, I think people need to realize that the mainstream media is very, very captured, both on the right and the left. I mean, Fox has some of the same issues, maybe in a different flavor of issue than the CNNs or MSNBCs, but both of them are far off the mark. The outlets on the right weren't covering this correctly, and the outlets on the left weren't covering this correctly. As the people on the right were covering this, saying, oh, well, this is a way to own Disney. Well, yes and no. Yes, Disney's going to take big damage from this, but actually it just affects RCID. This affects RCD, the district. This has nothing to do with the Disney company itself. It doesn't change Disney operations. However, it does affect the taxing district, which oversees Disney. So it will have an effect on Disney. Disney will lose trillions over, the next century. However, leaving that part of the law out there, I think, was an issue on the right-hand side. On the left, they were just completely delusional on this. I mean, they just were absolutely misunderstanding the issues and spouting First Amendment, like it was some sort of creed. So I think in my analysis, when I was looking at mainstream media coverage of this, at least initially, both the left and the right kind of had it pretty much wrong.
Which is why this may be the first you're hearing about a major legal win for the Florida governor in his standoff with Disney. Yes, Governor DeSantis scored a big court victory, and the partisan media on both the left and the right has barely covered it. The governor's big win came yesterday as a lawsuit against him brought by Disney was thrown out by a federal judge in Florida. This, stems from that dispute where the governor took over the special tax district, which had existed really since the 60s, and essentially turned Disney World into
1968 specifically. So yeah, 1968.
Largely its own county, right? Disney argued that the special arrangement was nixed as retaliation for the company coming out in opposition to the Florida Parental Rights and Education Bill, known to its critics as the Don't Say Gay law. Disney accused him of, quote, a relentless campaign to weaponize government power against Disney in retaliation for expressing a political viewpoint.
Once again, not actually weaponizing anything against Disney itself, but once again, taking control of something they've always had the ability to create or destroy at a whim, something they've been able to snap their fingers and get rid of, something which they had no right to, in the first place, protect in perpetuity, and had no realistic ability to control the legislature changing that at any point.
And the governor really didn't even challenge that. I mean, he basically admitted that that's why he did it. But his lawyers argued that all that really mattered legally was whether the new law stripped Disney of control of the district was constitutional. And the judge seemed to agree in his ruling. Judge Alan Windsor wrote, quote, it is settled law that when a statute is facially constitutional, a plaintiff, Disney, cannot bring a free speech challenge by claiming that the lawmakers who passed it acted with a constitutionally impermissible purpose.
So the thing is, when people see this quote and they don't understand the context of the law, they don't understand that this is a special district that can be created or destroyed at any time. And that's what they're talking about when they say constitutionally, when something is facially constitutional. So you need to understand that all it did was reorganize the district. The original one sunset the district, and then it reorganized the district. So nothing about that says anything about Disney. It says anything about speech, says anything at all. So without that context, people don't get it. And what I think the failure was on the left and the right is nobody was really explaining the law. They were explaining the political arguments. They were explaining why you should be Team Disney or Team DeSantis, but they weren't actually talking about the law because, well, frankly, nobody understood the law. Yeah, and by the way, I'm not simping for Dan Abrams here. I'm saying that nobody understands this issue, right? And nobody gets this right. right? So left, right, all of it is incorrect, right? And Dan Abrams doesn't seem to be far off. It doesn't seem like he understands this law fundamentally at a deeper level, or else he would explain it a little bit more.
Disney plans to appeal, and there's also a state claim filed by Disney that's pending. But look, this is a big setback for Disney. It is. It's a win for the governor, no matter how you spin it. Look, I don't care whether you agree.
I actually don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I know Dan Abrams is trying to make this point, and maybe it's a win for the governor in the sense that Disney doesn't get to hold it over him. But I think that it's a win for the state of Florida and the people in Florida who were subsidizing that district, were subsidizing what was going on in that district for decades. I think that people should move the narrative away from DeSantis and Disney to Florida, to the people of Florida, versus this corrupt institution, which was literally causing poverty, homelessness, housing gaps, infrastructure gaps in the surrounding counties. They were drawing money and leeching off of those in Orange, Osceola, Polk counties. So to say that this is just a win for DeSantis, I think is underestimating this. I think it is truly a win for the state and also for state sovereignty, which is something that is long overdue.
With the ruling or not, I don't, whether you think DeSantis's move was absurd or not, it's still big legal news.
And then what wasn't DeSantis' move, it was the legislature. You'd have to overturn the entire legislature. So a legislative move. Right.
And yet the partisan media didn't even try to spin it. They flat out ignored it. Because now it's sort of inconvenient for both sides, particularly for the left, right? Gets passed over. Remember the glee with which the left-leaning media covered the feud as it was playing out? Every time the governor fired a salvo at Disney, CNN and MSNBC mocked him relentlessly.
Messing with Bob Iger, you just don't do that.
I love that. See, one of the reasons why I like this clip was just because of all this like simping for Disney that they cut here from 2023. So these are all clips from 2023, and just like the massive amount of left-wing simping for Disney was beyond cringe. You never thought you would get to a point where the left has become pro-war and pro-big corporation. This is the insane thing, that they're now pro large woke corporation and pro war. Very, very odd.
Yeah, Governor Ron DeSantis is learning that the hard way.
And Disney.
And I love how they were making this conclusion in May that he's learning it the hard way. How? Like there's no potential damage there. There was no potential damage there. So these people back in April of last year, May of last year, just like fundamentally didn't understand the case and didn't understand what was going on pretty much at all. Period.
As a great corporate citizen that DeSantis just decided he wanted to take on in a stupid fight.
I know this man isn't being serious. Like, what you got for Space Mountain? What you got for Epcot? Because Mickey Mouse is too woke. Who is beating Mickey Mouse?
And I want to set up a camera.
Look, and it was good. Look, I'll say this. People were really wanting to drop the Mickey Mouse jokes. They're wanting to drop the Donald Duck jokes. They're wanting to drop the funny lines. And that was all like fun and games, but none of these motherfuckers knew the law. And gosh, I'm already getting us demonetized. So guys, please make sure you're smashing the like button out there and liking the video. We're at 459 people on my return to the studio here today. But it really is embarrassing to see people that, a year ago were just speaking out the corner of their mouth, not knowing what they're talking about, not knowing any of the law, not even trying to have a discussion of the law, right? There's zero accountability for it. I see Steve raging in the chat. There's zero accountability for it. Is this live? We're already demonetized, right? Or are you saying demonetized? But no, demonetized. We're demonetized for sure. For sure. After I said that, Wolf said, "Can Trump or any of the leaders sanction BlackRock and Tencent?" Sure, they can. Sure, they can. They can sanction Trump if Trump was president, he could sanction the shit out of BlackRock and Tencent if he wanted to. If he wanted to, as president, yes, definitely possible. Is this live? Said for 20. Thank you so much. Appreciate the 20 legal mindset memberships from Is This Live. And those who got those, please say thank you. Keck44, Sparky Schultz, Guy Anthony DeMarco, War Monkey, Nova, Industrious Bear, LawTube Junkie, John Doe, S. Stanley, Rachel Harris, Jace, William Godwin, Archlord Dunerider, Stefan Krebs, lots of angry robots, Dust Blight, Acolyte, Noblib, and Ryu Hoshi, and Aeroso 63. Guys, say thank you to Is This Live for hooking you up with those memberships. Also, thank you, Leprechaun Gold, for dropping a $10 Shiba super sticker. Much appreciated there today as we kick it off here talking about this appeal. So let's continue with the rest of this.
I agree. It was a stupid fight, right? But Ron DeSantis just...
See, this is where he's wrong and he doesn't understand shit, because Dan Abrams, and this is where I definitely disagree with Dan Abrams, and it shows he doesn't know much. And as Danielle, my mod, points out, Dan Abrams is behind Law and Crime, which are some of the biggest copyright cuckolds in all of internet history. But it is absolutely not a stupid fight. Reedy Creek was 100% justified to go away and be changed. It should have been changed. So this is not something that's stupid at all. Anybody who understands the law at all would actually get this.
beat the mouse in round one. But you wouldn't know it from watching CNN or MSNBC. Last April, in the 2-day period when Disney brought its lawsuit, it was covered on 55 different MSNBC and CNN shows. So nearly every show on the air on both networks discussed the case when it was filed.
So the thing is that a lot of people, they mistakenly take filing a complaint as a W. And I think what they heard from Disney a year ago was that the biggest news that they're going to get, is Disney filing it. Because I think Disney may have known and may have been warned that they were going to lose on a motion to dismiss. I think they knew that. And they were going to say, well, they're getting owned by Disney. Well, why? Because they filed a complaint? That's not an own. Anybody can file a complaint. When it gets dismissed on motion to dismiss, that's not a W. That's a huge L. You look like an idiot, right? You filed a frivolous lawsuit, which is at this point what we have. What we have is Disney filing a frivolous lawsuit that couldn't even state a viable claim. They didn't even have proper jurisdiction against Ron DeSantis and the Secretary of State. So outlets running out, CNN, MSNBC, all this other liberal outlets running out and saying that and covering it on 55 shows, it's ridiculous, but they must have known. They had to have known. There's no way they didn't know that this was a loser. Yes, you can sue a brick as
in the past 2 days since the lawsuit was thrown out, just 3 have mentioned it. And by the way, brief mentions. By the way, the right-leaning media hasn't exactly been shouting Governor DeSantis' name from the rooftops either. Now that he's kind of yesterday's news in the Republican Party and on the outs with Donald Trump. The governor's battle with a woke corporate giant apparently doesn't matter that much anymore. Well, that certainly wasn't the case last year when the lawsuit was filed.
By the way, I think Dan Abrams, and once again, these people, he talks derisively about mainstream media. He tries to pretend he's not part of mainstream media, which he definitely is. We're covering this, right? This battle against Disney and Disney's wokeness, it's popular. In fact, the content is very popular. Look at my good friends at Valiant Renegade, WW Pro, Jonas, all of us people that are covering this, that cover Disney, and also folks like the Geeks and Gamers Squad, people that have covered the decline in Disney's IP properties, Film Thread, I've spoke to those guys, right? Everybody who's covered the downfall of Disney, it's a big deal. It's not a small deal. It's a big deal. And this is a huge component of it. I just think that the mainstream media is overlooking this and is only taking piecemeal this argument or the case against Disney, right? They're only taking it in one aspect and another aspect. They're breaking this off and separating it. Although I think this is very much par for the course in the bad decision making of Disney, because ultimately it was Disney who decided to file the case against DeSantis. They were the ones who filed the case, not DeSantis. So just understand that we're paying attention to this, and we certainly think this is important. Oh yeah, also shout out to Midnight's Edge as well. I don't mean to forget anybody. Nerdrotic, Midnight's Edge, love all those guys. All those guys know what's up. We're all covering this. But once again, the fact that he says that nobody cares, it's like, no, there's a lot of people that care. And if you look at YouTube, just YouTube, the numbers are huge. Also, shout out to Rumble, though. We got over 100 people on Rumble as well. So shout out to you guys there hanging out on Rumble. Smash that pussy. Let's go.
Wild.
Wow, that was Florida Governor Ron DeSantis striking back at Disney.
Why should the Florida taxpayer have to subsidize the Disney wokeness just to the tune of $700 million? They shouldn't. That's what DeSantis is pointing out, and that's what's getting him so much play, I think, nationally.
This has worked for DeSantis. It's the perfect mousetrap. He actually got the mouse to enter the trap knowing it was a trap.
Get it? But with Donald Trump as the heavy favorite to win the Republican nomination and DeSantis out of the race altogether, Florida governor's victories just don't register. 27 different Fox News shows covered Disney's lawsuit against DeSantis over the 48-hour period when it was first filed. Only 2 have covered it now that the case was tossed. 2.
Yeah, and that's the contrast here is big, right? The contrast here is very, very big. Now, of course, that's why you guys can always turn in here to Legal Mindset, where I actually cover these things and actually cover things that are important. I mean, I try to cover on my channel things that are of fundamental importance, regardless of whether the mainstream media thinks they're important or not. And this is something that I think definitely is. Obviously, I've been covering it. Obviously, it's my expertise, but this is a stark contrast here that not enough shows are talking about it.
And this is yet another reason why America hates the media. The Disney lawsuit was news until it wasn't. Everybody got what they wanted from the DeSantis versus Disney saga. The left-leaning outlets got a convenient foil. The right-leaning outlets got a new hero. But the second it no longer fit anyone's narrative, the whole thing is cast aside and forgotten. Let's call this what it was from the partisan media. To use a phrase that we just heard, it's Mickey Mouse stuff.
See, and once again, it's like for folks that go out there, and that's the short clip there with Dan Abrams, but there wasn't much substance there. They're saying, okay, well, this lawsuit was nothing. No, it was actually really, really important. And what Dan Abrams and the folks that are looking at this don't understand is if Disney had prevailed on this, it would have fundamentally changed entire areas of law regarding what is protected First Amendment speech, what rights can a corporation have to intervene whenever the government that oversees them is modified, whenever there's any change. This would give real standing to thousands, if not even tens of thousands of businesses to sue immediately in counties and cities all across the United States. Because if you can sue because something happened to your city or state, well, there's a whole lot of lawsuits that can come down the pike. Let me read this here. Scorpid says, Disney earnings call Wednesday, February 7th, 4:30 p.m. with the rat emoji. Yes, I will be there. Now, I'm debating whether I stay up late or wake up early. That's always my split there. But I will definitely be there. And if I'm not on Valiant's stream now, I will say, look, if the streams get too packed, I may just do a stream on my own. I don't care, and you guys I think know this. I don't care for it, but it'll just be a listening stream. It'll just be, hey, hang out, I'm listening over here. That may or may not happen, but yeah, definitely will be up for that as well. Is this live for Canadian 5 says, it's almost like a corporate entity has a lobby group and a state doesn't. So media shills support the side that pays the bills. Yes, exactly. And we've seen this over and over again. Is this live where Disney has this PR arm and has these lobbies that they're able to push the exact narrative, literally their most favorable words directly into media. Media is pretty much printing off exactly what Disney is handing them without even fact checking or looking at it so much as even just glancing at it. That's what journalism is today. It's okay, let's fix any of their typos, but other than that, let's print their corporate press release and not checking anything, not confirming anything at all. That's what journalism, quote unquote, has been reduced to. And that's why we're doing so well online. That's why we're doing so well on other platforms, because we're the only people that are really independent and really judged based on whether or not we're telling the truth and whether or not we're being authentic. Right? Other than YouTube dropping the hammer and demonetizing us or getting us into trouble, mainly, guys, if we're not delivering what you want as an audience, the people watching us, then yeah, we're not going to get supported. We're not going to get people backing us up. We're not going to get people like supporting us day in, day out. CNN can get played in hospitals and airports where you're forced to watch it, and they get certain numbers from advertisers, etc. So we're just trying to cover it with the most integrity we can independently. And that's why we're going to continue to have to cover these things, because they don't want to entertain you or educate you. They just want to straight up propagandize and lie to you. And of course, we always try to have fun on this channel. So that was a little clip there on some of the basis. Now, I think that, look, this is going to be a thing, and I will think it's going to continue a thing regardless of the presidential outcome. I do think that if it goes towards Trump winning, the AG will be a discussion that's worthwhile to talk about. But other than that, as a political edge, because of some of Disney's federal crimes or potential federal crimes, other than the AG conversation, right, this is something that largely stays within Florida law and can be dealt with within Florida. At this point, the federal case is going to be pretty damn hard to appeal. Now, of course, let's get to the article here. The main article, which I wanted to bring up, and let me get this comment. Don said, CNN no longer has airport contracts. Yes, but they did it at one point, right? Which is what I'm referencing. It was for a very long time, actually. But let's go over here to look at the appeal. So obviously, we've since had an appeal. This is from the Post. Disney appeals judge's dismissal of free speech lawsuit as Ron DeSantis says move on. So they've appealed it to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, somebody asked me earlier, I think it was Pro or somebody else, who asked me, what do I think the odds are in the 11th Circuit? And what are the, what's kind of the makeup of the 11th Circuit? What do I think is going to happen regarding that? Do I think that the 11th Circuit has like any particular bias? So if you look at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, it actually has a fairly balanced level of justices, and the presidents that appointed those justices are relatively balanced. So let me show you real quick what's going on here. So here's the current composition of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. So you've got the chief judge, which is a Bush judge, right? So Judge Pryor, who's a Bush judge, Judge Wilson, Clinton, Jordan, Obama, Trump. God bless Trump. Look at this. This is why presidents are so important. Look how many judges got appointed here, right? Boom. So many judges here, right? Then Biden, Ford, Carter, Reagan, HW, Clinton, Obama, right? So there's a lot of the Obama and the Clintons out there, but it's about equal. I believe it's 10-11 or almost 11-11 in terms of the ideological lineup. So if you really are banking on it going one way or another, I don't see it getting to a point where there's going to be a case for a complete sweep on one side or another at the 11th Circuit level. I think that that's something that anybody who's counting on a political outcome there is going to be disappointed. Weird said, could you do a react to the rules for rulers by CGP Grey? Weird. I'd have to look that up, man. Like I'll put it in my notes here to look at some point, but I need to watch it beforehand to make sure it's nice and kosher. But yeah, sure. I'll check it out. Appreciate that. So DeSantis during a press conference said that they need to move on. Disney needs to move on. And I agree that the best thing that Disney could do right now is to move on. Right now, settling the lawsuit at the state level and ending the litigation at the federal level would be the best possible thing. And I think they'd be willing to do that. I think the SIF Todd would be willing to settle in order to just make these lawsuits go away and make sure that Disney gets some level of development rights, which are the right to build what it wants to build, right? Make sure they guarantee them some minimal level of that and get rid of the state case. I think the SIF Todd might be willing to do that, but they've got to go and do that now, and they've got to do it in good faith. By continuing to deny reality, by continuing to pursue this First Amendment, they're pushing themselves more and more into a corner and more towards those criminal charges. Leprechaun Gold says, Disney ratty judges laws it once hopes for the right rat judge. They're not going to get the right judge. They're not going to get the right judge, Leprechaun Gold. It's not going to happen. Is Live says, am I wrong? All the 11th Circuit would do, though, is return the case to a lower court citing an error in the original judgment. So this is exactly my point here. So even if, let's pretend they win the appeal. So is this live? To answer your question, let's pretend they win the appeal. Here's what would happen. It goes back down to the same district court for them to analyze it again under whatever the light of the appeal ruling is. So the lower court said that Disney lacked standing against the governor and secretary and failed to state a claim against the CFTOD. So let's say that they did have standing against the governor and secretary. That's what's ruled by the 11th Circuit. Well, the judge could go back and rule again and say, okay, but they failed to state a claim, and throw it out again. So I just don't think it gets far. And then even going further than that, Disney is the plaintiff. They've got the burden of proof here. Do you think they're going to survive a summary judgment motion? Hell no. They have no facts. They have no figures. They have nothing to back this up. There's no way they would survive a summary judgment motion. If they can't even get past a motion to dismiss, they're dead on arrival in a summary judgment motion, let alone a trial. Come on. Come on. Oh, I see people in the chat. Was that why people are trying to get me struck or something? Okay. Well, I'm not trying to pick fights with people and get struck. So yeah. So I don't think they would change much even if they won an appeal. I think the judge could still go back and say, okay, I still rule on a motion to dismiss, and I still dismiss it. So I don't think that would change much at all. Mario Trujillo says, when the chickens come home to roost, the normies are going to be shocked at how far this goes. The media will turn on Disney once it's convenient. Oh, I bet they will turn on Disney. And when things start looking bad, real bad, and there's blood in the water, the sharks are going to circle. These people they think, oh, the woke left, they've got our back. They've got our back. No. They will eat you when it is convenient. When it is convenient, they will eat you. And don't think they forgot the writer's strike stuff. They're going to turn around and make it about the writer's strike. They're going to say, you should have paid your writers more, right? You can never appease these people. And Iger's key mistake is that he thought this is the way to appease these people and garnish their support. But that's never going to work. So there is a separate lawsuit, and once again, they characterize this wrongly, over who controls the district. That's actually not true. There's a separate lawsuit over the 11th hour agreements that's in state court, but that's not about controlling the district at all whatsoever. So obviously Disney was mad at the legislation. And Disney supporters run the district. No. Disney cronies, Disney shills, people that were being bribed, right? And given tax benefits, given passes, given things they shouldn't have been given. So Judge Windsor said that Disney lacks standing in the claims against DeSantis and the secretary, and that the company's claim lacked merit against the CFTOD, the appointees on the board. Windsor wrote that when a law is on its face constitutional, plaintiffs can't make free speech claims challenging it because they believe lawmakers acted with unconstitutional motives. The law that revamped Disney World's district didn't single out Disney by name. So I want to give a shout out to the Post for at least mentioning that. but rather special districts created before the ratification of the Florida Constitution, a group that included Disney and a handful of other districts. So that piece of legislation didn't single out even Reedy Creek. It just named a bunch of districts, right? Experts diverge on how successful a appeal by Disney will be, with some saying an important question raised by the decision will have to be addressed at the appellate court, and others believe the dispute should have been resolved politically instead of litigated. Yes, it would have been better for it to be talked out, but this is a problem of Disney. Disney was the one that litigated it, not the other way around. This guy, Dick Fogelsong, who apparently wrote a good book, said maybe Disney should go back to lobbying and writing checks. This is what they were better at. And they got away with it for a long time when they were lobbying and writing checks. As the judge's ruling shows, they erred in using the court to resolve a political question. Everyone knows the legislators' act was retaliatory towards Disney. It just wasn't provable by legal standards. Well, this is where Dick is wrong. See, Dick may know a lot about the history of Disney, but this is where he is absolutely 100% wrong. Right? It cleans up Reedy Creek, something that should have been done long ago. That's not retaliatory. There's a lot of just reason for that. And even if there is even if there's comments that are made or whatever else, there's plenty of reasons why Reedy Creek should be cleaned up. Then, oh God, this guy, they cite Jacob Schumer, who once again, I knew this lawyer in Orlando, one of the biggest pixie dusters ever. I don't want to dox him and his family, but I used to have him on Instagram. This guy had he was wearing Minnie Mouse ears in every other photo. This guy goes to Disney World probably every other day. And let's just put it at that. Definite super uber beta male. But anyways, Orlando attorney Jake Schumer, who filed the case, pointed to a social media post he made after the decision. The appellate court will have to address the issue of whether a law singled out an entity, even if it isn't directly named, but fits the criteria for what is being targeted. No, he's wrong, and Jacob's retarded. He doesn't actually do special district law, so doesn't know anything at all about that. He said, I think they'll be uncomfortable leaving a loophole because it basically says you can freely retaliate for speech through specifying a party via objective criteria rather than by name. Nope. Schumer doesn't know what he's talking about, and it's regarding a government, not an individual corporation. So this guy, once again, huge Disney simp, was cited in way too many things and doesn't practice in this area of law at all. So didn't know what he was talking about. So once again, you can see the mainstream media, even later, right, doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, right? Before the control of the district changed hands from Disney allies to DeSantis appointees earlier last year, the Disney supporters on its board signed agreements shifting control over the design and construction of Disney World to the company. The new DeSantis appointees claimed the 11th hour agreements neutered their powers, and the district sued the company in state court to have the contracts voided. Disney filed counterclaims, so that's what we've got right now. Now, Disney renewed its request for a 6-month pause in the state court case Wednesday, saying it was unable to conduct a deposition and get documents. So that's where we are at now. Now, real quick before we go anywhere else, on this specific timing, because I want to talk about that real quick. For the state case, we just got in the state case some updated filings. So we have some brand new filings here in the state case. We've got a notice of supplemental authority that is 21 pages. Well, you know what else was 21 pages? The decision in the federal case. So what they did was they took the federal case and they filed it as a supplemental authority. So they took what was filed in federal court, the opinion, and they filed that as a supplementary authority. You can see that right here in the circuit court for the 9th Circuit, Orange County Civil Court, CFTOD versus Walt Disney. The CFTOD pleading the plaintiff because this is state court. They filed the final order from Judge Windsor about the First Amendment challenge. Because remember, Disney is also trying to argue First Amendment in the state case as well. So they took that entire order and just filed it. They just put it as Exhibit A here and filed the whole thing. So now the state judge is going to be on notice. That's part of the record. That's part of the evidence that can be considered by the judge in the state case. So I think that alone is a persuasive argument for getting rid of this case at a state level. Scorpion Black Dragon says, expected SCOTUS decision equals certiorari denied. There is no way they would find in favor of Disney on this. There's absolutely no way, because the floodgates of litigation, you'll hear this not just from me, but from other lawyers. And this is a huge consideration for the appellate courts. I don't know if you guys ever know about this or whatever, but I did moot court and listened to a lot of appellate arguments. I practice by listening to real appellate arguments, and they really don't like anything that will open up a huge amount of lawsuits in the future. Imagine if every time anybody said anything mean or weird or potentially biased, you could sue to challenge any law that they pass. That would be ridiculous, right? That would be absolutely preposterous. People on the left and the right will be suing everybody everywhere because you're always making statements that can be construed as politically motivated, biased, etc. So the amount of litigation that would come would be absolutely ridiculous. Now, if it is truly retaliatory, that is retaliating against the specific benefits of an individual, meaning, for example, they get somebody specifically fired, right? So let's say somebody is a whistleblower and they fire the whistleblower. Yeah, that's something that is actionable. But this is not an employee-employer situation. This is not something where a employee who's a Democrat narked on a corrupt Republican or vice versa, right? A Republican, narked on a corrupt Democrat. That's not the situation we have here. And we don't have somebody who lost their individual job. A government is not a job. It is not an entitlement. You are not entitled to that. Despite feeling like you are, nobody is entitled to your own government, least of all Disney. So that's what they kind of miss out there. Weird says, 0 senators went after Zuckerberg about Facebook Marketplace being the largest scam site in the world. Site needs to be shut down. Yeah, probably. Liz Aslive says, well, if Disney wins their federal lawsuit, imagine how big the Elon Musk lawsuit would be. Oh God, that'd be absolutely huge. It'd be absolutely huge, because think about that. I mean, if this is a problem, what happened to Elon? I mean, Elon had everybody and their mother colluding against him, including the feds. Yeah, no, that'd be massive. It'd be massive. And right now, Elon's battling the whole continent of Europe. I mean, this is the disgusting thing, is we got a bunch of Europeans that are trying to regulate our social media and our companies. And look, I know that I like the phrase, America innovates, China replicates, Europe replicates. Or sorry, replicates. America innovates, China replicates, Europe regulates, right? That very much holds true. That very, very, very much holds true. But we got to start regulating their regulation. If we care about freedom and we care about allowing our businesses to thrive and people to operate, we need to regulate the regulation and put a stop on that. Just saying. So anyways, we got those updates. Also, real quick, I want to bring this up because some people may ask me about it and I don't want anybody to get confused. So there's some right here you can see in the case, there's a motion for a protective order. This is not Bob Iger asking for a restraining order against DeSantis, right? This protective order is not like a restraining order, okay? This is not like Mickey Mouse is asking for protection from Seedy Creek because he knows we're going to visually blow him a new one. No, that's not that at all. It is a protection of discovery. So what this does is it protects certain discovery that may have trade secrets or other confidential information or protected IP. So it's a protective order regarding certain discovery, because there's certain discovery that's coming up as part of this that should be protected because it needs to be protected. So yeah, this is not a TRO. Don't get worried. I know people are going to ask me. I know somebody's going to be like, hey, Andrew, what about the protective order? Nope. It's just about discovery, i.e. evidence, the stuff that's coming out now as we go through public records requests and as we go through depositions, things are coming out that Disney perhaps doesn't want to come out. Tankrat says for the dinar, 50 dinar, Emirati dinar, says, talking about the floodgates, the New York state law, the Adult Survivors Act, resulted in 2,500 sex abuse lawsuits. Wow. I did not know there was that much. That is crazy. Just so you know, for those that don't know in the chat, the Adult Survivors Act is New York legislation enacted in May 2022, which amends state law to allow alleged victims of sexual offenses for which the statute of limitations has lapsed to file civil suits for a 1-year period from November 24th, 2022 to November 24th, 2023. So it also allowed people to sue for sexual assault and workplace conduct. So apparently there were actually, I'm looking here, there were more than 3,000. More than 3,000 suits filed in total. Wow. This is what happens, guys. When you open up the ability to sue, people are going to sue. I don't know why people are surprised when people sue, when they give them the opportunity to sue. And when it clogs up the courts, and the courts, have to pay attention to that instead of doing other things which might be more productive, we'll say. Okay, so let's touch on a couple things that happened here today. So I want to hit this one. Obviously, we've got a lot of things going on, but one of the big things is these trial dates. And they've set a June trial date for the public records lawsuit. Now, what this is there is a lawsuit that Disney filed against the CFTOD as a separate lawsuit over public records. They've now set a date for that for June. This is so far out as regards to public records, and that's probably because by June, they'll likely have produced all of those documents, so that lawsuit will largely go away. So what this does is it makes this pretty much a moot lawsuit, and if this even happens at all, which we'll see whether it happens at all, this lawsuit is going to effectively be old news. So by June of 2024, this is not going to be really a big deal, whether or not the CFTOD turned over records fast enough. But what it does do, and this is the important thing to pay attention to, is it gets it past the important dates for Disney, because there's a lot of dates for Disney that are coming up. For example, number 1, their quarterly earnings webcast. So it gets them past the quarterly earnings webcast, which is coming up at 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, February 7th. So, and by the way, you guys can all come here and listen to it. If you're not listening to it live with, somebody on the interwebs, you can come over here and listen to it on the WaltDisneyCompany.com, right? Just make sure you've got appropriate protection so you don't get any of that Disney woke, malware installed. We'll just say that. So they've got that coming up, which is an important deadline. And also they announced a date for the shareholder meeting. So that meeting is going down on April 3rd, 2024. So when we go back and we look, okay, June trial date, April 3rd, that's not a coincidence, right? That is not a coincidence at all whatsoever. There's no coincidence that they set this date, the trial date, as after that. And also why they're trying to delay the case, the state case, as long as possible. Why they want another 6 months. They want it all to go out as long as possible so they can ultimately avoid an issue with Nelson Peltz. Because the last thing they want to see is Nelson Peltz Jay Rasulo, Ike Perlmutter, making a big deal about them losing yet another lawsuit. This is also why, linking with the appeal, why I think they are appealing this, why ultimately I think Disney is appealing this, is to try to stall, because then they can pretend they haven't lost, and they can pretend they haven't lost for another 6 months. They could say, oh, well, we're appealing it. And if they get past that meeting and they survive, and Iger survives, because remember, all Iger cares about is Iger surviving, then I think they may be in a position where, okay, they'll try to settle it or deal with it. Maybe. But at that point, too, there may be criminal charges filed. And you know what? As we get into election season, I got to worry about it. Somebody said it in the chat, too. With the RCID audit, Jake Rasulo could be in trouble, too. I don't know whether he is or not. I don't know how involved he was, but I don't know what Jake knew or didn't know about Reedy Creek, what he knew or didn't know about Reedy Creek Energy Services, about the contracts, about the benefits. There's a lot of things that could go on. A lot of things that could go on there. So just watch out for those dates. I think those dates are huge. Also, another one that's huge is that Disney decided to sell off billions of dollars in India. Now, look, I know. Look, I know I'm over here in Asia, and some of you guys may say, Andrew, this is you with your weird Asia news. No. Hold up. This is billions of dollars of value in India. So the value of their Indian assets, the business in India that they owned, was $3.9 billion US dollars. So huge valuation there. Sold it off. So that's 60% based on that valuation. And they agreed to sell that 60% of its business, and the deal will be sealed by the end of the month. I don't think we have a final number. So this is looking at selling off things related to Hotstar and their Indian assets. So they're already cutting off more of what's worth. So to me, I would not be surprised if we see the Disney stock drop even more, because when you sell off your assets, you are just simply no longer worth as much. So the Disney stock, now that it's sloughing off even more assets, may continue to slide as we go into that earnings call. But also, they may use this as a way to game their assets and liabilities. They may use this as a way to try to quickly balance the books before they have to talk about them in 5 days. They may be able to say, oh, look, we made all this money from the sale. Look what we did. We made all this money to offset some of their liabilities and losses. We'll see what they try to do. But we know that Disney is very, very adept at playing dirty accounting games. They're in fact quite masterful at it. Let me make sure I got everybody here on all the platforms. Yes, I did. I like Marsupial Gamer on Rumble says they should have called the New York Act the Trump Derangement Act. Yes, that literally was the Trump Derangement Act, which allowed that old, crusty, delusional woman to sue Donald Trump and get the most ridiculous ruling ever in a massive violation of due process. Absolutely ridiculous. But we know there's some cooking in those books when it comes to Disney. So look forward to seeing people probing into that one. All right. Let me see. Oh, by the way, before I go anywhere else on this, I want to comment before I get into Canada. So I want to comment on this. This is actually something kind of happening live here, and I noticed somebody asked me about this. And I posted about it on X. So this is a little bit off topic, but I want to just comment for 2 seconds on the firing of the feminists in the Korean game company related to Stellar Blade. I don't know if you guys have seen that. By the way, guys, smash a like button here. We've got 700 folks in the chat. 352 of you are checking in here today. So I just had somebody tag me in this. And this is related to, let me show you this post, right? So this is the post here that I posted on X, right? So this is the thread. This is by Mui here, who says, the gaming company that made the game Shift Up, this is a Korean company, right? Removed the work of 2 women because they were feminist. I am a victim and former employee of the game company. So I wrote this here. This is not only what needed, this is not only based, but 100% needed. Although an extreme minority, the feminist brand in Korea is of the absolute worst, most misandrous sort. Any self-declared feminist would absolutely dedicate herself to sabotaging a project for her radical ideals. I lived in Korea for 3 years. Let me tell you how I knew this. I knew a lot of girls, and there are girls that were studying in America and studying in Korea as well. And even the American girls that went to American college, which we all know how woke American college is. We all know how it indoctrinates people. We all know how it shifts everybody to the left. So obviously all these girls are much more to the left than the girls that would remain behind. But the ones that are there that call themselves feminist are so far feminist that even the girls that go to American universities and come back say, wow, these girls are extreme. I mean, these are people that absolutely fervently hate men to such a degree that they try to purge them from essentially existence. It is very, 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 very crazy. And they're on there's all other kicks there where it's like they want to deal without men and just totally exclude them from society. And they're going without male friends. They're not having interactions with men at work. They're not obviously having sex with anybody, right? They're just kind of these femcells that are extraordinary feminists. Very, 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 very toxic. So somebody asked me that question on Twitter and went further, asking me, okay, is this true? And just wanted to confirm that they are absolutely 100% a cult, right? It's absolutely a cult. Because I think it was somebody, let me put it here, who asked me about this. Here we go. Yeah. Was asked right here. Hey, Legal Minds is true about feminists in Korea. Yes. They are very, very much cultists. So just so you guys know, a little bit of inside Korean baseball for that one. I know some other people covered that, but frankly, nobody, I know like Yellow Flash, so I'll shout out to Yellow Flash and those guys who do it, but those guys didn't live in Korea and see it. And when I see girls that I think are feminists and they are saying that these girls are extreme, that's bad. When girls who are feminists are pointing at other girls and saying they're crazy, you know it's bad, right? You know it's bad. So It's Live says, hey, they're only losing $6 to $8 billion on this transaction. So in all likelihood, give this money to Comcast. It's a win for Disney these days. Oh my God. Yeah, they've got to hand over all the money to Comcast for Hulu. Oh my God. That's so crazy. They're really searching under the couch cushion for money these days. All right. So let's get into what's going on with Trudeau in Canada. So this is a little bit of some news out of Canada. I'm going to go with this bit by Talk TV. I don't know whether these guys are Aussie or Canadian. The girl broadcaster looks a little weird, but just listen to the news here for a second.
Mr. Trudeau, the federal court has ruled that the Emergencies Act was unconstitutional. Would you resign or apologize to Canadians for violating their rights?
That was Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau being scurried away into a car with questions of accountability being thrown his way. Canada's Liberal leader is in...
By the way, guys, you tell me in the chat, is it an Aussie accent? What is that? It's probably Aussie, right? Is it an Aussie accent? Is it an Aussie accent? Just, you guys tell me, let me know.
Hot water this week after a federal court ruled that his decision to invoke the Emergencies Act in February 2022 was unreasonable. These powers were put in place after thousands of truckies protested for 1 month.
I assume when she said truckies, that sounds super Aussie, so I assume that's Aussie.
Against the government's coronavirus vaccine mandate when driving to and from the United States. The court ruling read, the federal government's decision to declare a public order emergency under the Emergencies Act in early 2022, as well as the associated regulations that it enacted, were unreasonable and were not justified on the facts or the law. The regulations violated the charter right to freedom of expression and the right to be secure against unreasonable search or seizure. But the Trudeau government isn't happy with this court ruling. In fact, it will appeal it. Trudeau's finance minister stood behind the government's decision to invoke these controversial powers.
We faced, as a country and as a government, an incredibly serious threat.
What was the threat? The threat was a bunch of people honking their horns. Come on. I mean, like, the threat was not anything serious. And look at, like, let's go back to when he announced this. This is when he announced this. Remember back in the day, I remember covering this. Because look at all these like COVID cucks back here, right? With the little masks up and everything, pretending this actually protected and helped them. Remember that? Do you guys remember that? Do you know everyone who's calling for like COVID amnesty and that we all forgive and forget? Remember what these guys were trying to do? What all these people were trying to do here? I think people have forgotten and forgiven way too easily for this, right?
Has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations.
The reason why...
Well, see, that characterizing it as an occupation, a blockade, I mean, come on. I mean, an annoyance maybe, sure. A blockade, not really. I mean, look, yes, some people were kind of annoyed by it, and they show some kind of footage here where you see, okay, you know, some people were annoyed by that, and, you know, there were some folks out there that were out there protesting, but they're no crazier, in fact, much more tame and much more controlled than anything that was going on the left. Dude, Viva Fry was out there hanging out with them. He was out there like just sipping on some maple syrup with those guys, just shooting the breeze. There was absolutely peaceful, controlled, calm area. Yes, it was bothering some government shills in Ottawa, but other than that, wasn't doing too much at all, really. But we have good news that the judge, and this is Judge Mosley, Richard Mosley, came out and said that the use of the Emergency Powers Act, that is the act by which they took the ability to freeze people's bank account, to lock down their financial resources, to just generally put them in a place where they can't do anything. Yeah, that was unreasonable. So saying that was unreasonable. So the evidence of the court did not support a finding that the impugned activities reached that threshold. So saying it was not reasonable to invoke the Emergencies Act, which had not been used for a long time. So there really was no reason to trigger that Emergencies Act. There were other ways to deal with this struggle other than using the Emergencies Act. Typical regular police powers were sufficient to handle this. And because of that, that was shouldn't have been done. Real quick, I'll listen to this professor guy or the speaker here because he has a pretty decent opinion here on this video.
It is. It's amazing. This is how all government works. It's not just in Canada. It's here in the United States. It's everywhere. The government tramples on people's rights. And then almost 2 years later, the courts say, you can't do that. Well, they've done it. And then they stopped doing it. They've walked away. They treated it like, a blackjack dealer at shift change in Vegas where they nothing to see here. They walk away. They've done trampled on the rights. They took away the bank accounts and they seized the bank accounts of these truckers protesting. they had a fundamental right to do that. And now everything has gone back to normal. And then a court says, you probably shouldn't have done that. And they go, yeah, shucks, sorry about that. Next time, we probably won't do that. And then next time, of course, they do exactly the same thing again, because the consequences, what are the consequences? Maybe some truckers will get some financial restitution, but as far as Justin Trudeau's he's not going to face any consequence. He literally violated fundamental rights of Canadian citizens. And he's just, probably going to have a nice meal tonight and not think about it ever again. That's his consequence.
So that's exactly the point I wanted to make, because this is true in the US, this is true in Canada, this is true in Australia, this is true everywhere. These people were able to violate our fundamental human rights and just be like, oh, JK, we shouldn't have done that. We're cool, right, bro? Yeah, no, it's not cool. It's not cool. And Homeboy didn't forget. Like, I did not forget what they did. I did not forget this craziness. And I'm not going to forget this craziness. And the fact of the matter is, these folks should be held to task. Now, look, it's difficult to come after them from a legal sense, but there should be some form of accountability. And I wish there was a legal remedy for tyrants. I wish we exercised that a little bit more cleanly. Yeah, I'll be very careful about what I say because of YouTube. But it does say that the tyranny needs to have some sort of remedy, and it needs to be more swift in the courts. And we also need to not always wait for the courts to work when the courts can take so long to rule on things. They can take way too long to rule on things. Tank Rat for 50 said, lol, there was an anime or manga, World's End Harem, which was based on women releasing a virus that kills all men. Oof, big oof. I have not heard of that one. Maybe I should watch it, I guess. I think I remember one where like there's a guy who wakes up and he's like one of the few men that's still living in the world. I don't know whether it's a manhwa or a manga, i.e. whether it's Korean or Japanese, but there's like only a couple guys. So like all of the guys that are still living are just bawling because, well, they've got the only seed and the girl's got that need, if you know what I'm talking about. So it was a very interesting one. I think I read a little bit or watched a little bit of that one. And then I for some reason I tuned out. Maybe it wasn't finished. I don't know. But that said, for all plagues, whether they're fictional or not, there should be responsibilities. And frankly, people do need to be held to task. I mean, where's our Fauci trials? Look, I want the Fauci trials just like I want Fauci and Nuremberg should go hand in hand because he violated the Nuremberg Code with what he ended up doing. So I'm just saying there needs to be some repercussions for those folks in the long run. But speaking of repercussions, we are almost at 500 likes. So if you guys could go over and throw a like on this video, it would be so appreciated. Also, we're at a good number of likes over there. I think we're at like 25 likes on Rumble. We've got 163 people. Appreciate y'all over there on Rumble hanging out and keeping it real. Over on Rumble saying, can hold people accountable when the majority of Canadians don't understand anything wrong happened. You know what? I'm actually coming around on Canada a little bit just because, look, I like a lot of Canadians. I get along with them. And you got to understand, when you can have a country that can be run on a minority government, a lot of bad stuff can happen. When a minority government can have control, a lot of bad stuff can happen. Yeah. The Canadian Supreme Court is weak. I don't know about that. I mean, I've seen them make some good rulings, but we'll see what happens there. Hopefully they don't bend the knee to Trudeau, right? And I think if at any point he's the lowest in his political influence, so hopefully we will see him head out the door. That being said, guys, I think that's what I'm going to leave it at today. For this show, we're gonna have more. Obviously, I'll be back tomorrow, the next day, the day after that. I am over here in Thailand. I'll be here for a while, not going anywhere, not moving. Planning to make February a really big month and really try to be streaming for you guys. And this is going to be my normal time. My normal time will be somewhere around 8:30, 9 o'clock a.m. every single day. I prefer these streams. I prefer them at my evening time. They work out better for me, give me more time to source stories, and let me break stuff to you first thing in the morning. So that being said, guys, hope you guys are doing well. Sleep great, or rather have a nice day. I'm going to sleep great, and I will catch you all tomorrow.